terms of where they sort of highlighted some gaps, I think the key ones for me was the licensing of money remitters. It's probably something that should have been done at the start and followed Australia's approach with the licensing of remitters. If you look at the majority of cases that have been taken by the supervisors in New Zealand, most of them are against money remitters. Certainly the large settlements are. So it is a high area of risk. It is one that there's been major issues with non-compliance. So I think the licensing regime is something that should have been done a long time ago. A lot of remitters have actually asked for it because it actually makes their life easier if they're subject to more scrutiny, because it makes it easier to get and keep bank accounts. It's a big challenge. So I think that'll come through. That's being worked through at the moment. So we'll see that sooner rather than later. I think they just highlighted a few gaps in our guidance and further guidance needed. One of the challenges in New Zealand is that we do work across 3 supervisors as opposed to 1 supervisor in Australia. Things like guidance can take a bit longer because they have to be agreed between the 3 supervisors to ensure that it meets all the different sectors they cover. So that's the challenge. Probably the other key thing for New Zealand was just was beneficial ownership. So one of the challenges we've always had in New Zealand is that it's very easy to incorporate a company in New Zealand. It used to be a lot easier. They added residency requirements for having a resident New Zealand director a while back, but that's always been a real gap and something that's been exploited internationally for money laundering and financing of terrorism. So a real risk. So one of the things they've highlighted is that we really need to look at getting a better availability of what they say is adequate, accurate, and current beneficial ownership information, including around nominee directors and shareholders. You can look at a company, but when you look up the shareholding, you can't tell necessarily whether that is simply someone holding the shares or whether that person is actually the beneficial owner of those shares. And I think the difference you see on the Australian companies is that they will have an indication whether or not that person is a nominee or whether those shares are beneficially held. So what I expect to see of this will be more detail on our company's office around declarations. Are the shares held by these people? Are the directors, nominee directors, or acting in that sort of capacity? So that will be a game changer, I think, for New Zealand, but that is quite a lot of work.